How do you cope with stress/anxiety? Big question, because I still don't think I cope, and I don't think it's easy to cope with things like anxiety for sure, and it's not an easy fix, but I think there are definitely ways of getting around it, or getting ways of kind of distracting yourself. What is going on, ladies and gents? Welcome back to a brand new video. So in today's video, slightly different, slightly more relaxed video. I'm going to sit down and answer some questions that you guys have been asking me on Instagram. So if you're not following my Instagram, it's at TomRoweStudios. Make sure you follow it, otherwise you're missing out on big occasions like these when I get to answer your questions on video. So I put out a poll the other day, got some fantastic questions in. So I've got about 20 questions I'm going to run through. So sit back, relax and enjoy. Okay, yes, and just before we dive into the video, can you please smash the thumbs up button and subscribe? That'd be much appreciated, and it massively helps the channel. So please just take a second, smash the thumbs up button, make sure to subscribe, and thank you very much. Okay, so question numero 1. Best real-time rendering software of your choice. So I've personally only used maybe 3 or 4 softwares in my life. I've used Lumion, Enscape, V-Ray, and that might be it. And I'd 100% say the best that I've ever used is Lumion for sure, but that is obviously the most powerful rendering software out of those options I've just told you, and it's also the most expensive. But Lumion is definitely the best one personally for me. I used Lumion in practice 2 or 3 years ago now, and I used it for literally 3 months straight, generating renders for the practice, and it was really useful. And I'm just going to pause it here. So usually when you're using a rendering software, it's very difficult to get it perfect on your first run, and usually you might have to throw it into Photoshop or something to clean it up a little bit, touch up some bits and bobs, and therefore today's sponsor of today's video is going to really help you with that. Yes, so this video is sponsored by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community to help you guys as creatives, as architect students, as graphic design students, as illustrators, as anything creative. Skillshare is here to help you. Skillshare has a wide range of classes, tutorials, and workshops that are absolutely amazing for you to build on your skills. So if you are looking to use a 3D rendering program, Skillshare has a wide range of classes and tutorials that will run through different types of rendering softwares, and also has a range of Photoshop tutorials to get you started. And now that I'm studying back at university as a master's student, I'm working really hard, and I'm trying to be as productive as possible. And that's why this masterclass by Greg McKeown has been really interesting to me. His simple productivity, how to accomplish more with less, is actually really interesting because it dives into how you can start using tactics for saying no to non-essential commitments, ways to hold yourself accountable for the long term. And I think the points that he covers are really important to be successful long term, but also be productive on a day-to-day basis. The first 1,000 people to hit the link down below in the description will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare Premium membership. So back to the video. Lumion for sure. How can we make the most of our first year? So this is a very common question. I get asked this question a lot, and I don't think there is a perfect way to make the most of your first year, but personally from my experience, I would say just relax and try not to stress crazy amounts. In my time in first year, I just stressed out way too much. I was way too caught up on getting that first, doing amazingly well, and just being the best student I possibly could. But then I kind of missed out on experimenting and testing and being kind of quite raw with architecture and learning the basics. And instead I was really trying to perfect everything that I did. So what I would personally suggest is just go crazy, just be experimental, learn as many things as possible, embrace the course, don't get too stressed about everything being perfect and being top level quality. Just kind of make sure you're fully present and fully involved, learn as much as possible, and just don't get too caught up in grades and those kinds of things, because it's not going to help you. At the end of the day, first year doesn't really matter in terms of grades. As long as you pass, you'll get into the next year. But it's just important to learn the basics, learn some key things in first year. This question: is living in London as expensive as you thought? Obviously, moving to London, I had a quite strong inkling that it's going to be expensive. Like, I knew it was going to be crazy amounts for pretty much everything. But so far, I've budgeted this month, and I've gone quite over my budget because I just obviously didn't realize how much it was going to cost for food and drinks, and even get my haircut. My haircut was £33 when usually back at home it's £15, so that's double. and I couldn't find anywhere that was cheaper. So things like that you don't realise, but then it starts building up and building up. So gym membership, £36 is what I'm paying, whereas back home it's £25. So over the different kind of transactions throughout the month, things are a lot more than what you realise, and it starts to kind of eat away at your money. And I've noticed my money is disappearing quickly, and it's quite scary, and I'm like, please stop, I don't like it. I had to prepare for first year. So personally for me, going into first year, I didn't prepare whatsoever. I didn't have a clue what I was going into. I didn't read any books, I didn't do any research, I didn't know any architects, I didn't know anything about architecture. And in a way, I think that was quite nice, in a weird way, because I felt like I could go in and I was just like embraced by everything, because I didn't really expect anything as such, if you know what I mean. But obviously if you can prepare, I'd probably advise you to prepare. So definitely read books, do some research for sure into some famous buildings or architects or anything that you're interested in. Get maybe using some softwares and just download some softwares and playing around with SketchUp and those kinds of things, just to get an idea on kind of the softwares that they use and how they work. Maybe start using Photoshop and InDesign before you go to uni, because they're really key softwares that you're going to be using. And just set yourself up mentally to be more organized and in a routine, and just kind of get yourself in a position where you know you're going to be doing a lot of work, and get yourself ready for that, because I don't think it's definitely easier said than done. It's hard to get yourself ready to do crazy amounts of work, but if you can in some way, so for example, if at A level, if you're doing a coursework subject, that is helping you set yourself up for first year, because you're kind of getting used to the environment and used to the workload and how a coursework subject works. So yeah, don't do what I did and just do nothing. Even though it was quite unique going into uni, and it was like, wow, everything was brand new and I didn't expect any of it. It was quite a nice thing, really. Top 10 or the ways, or top 10 ways of, top 10 ways to recommend, or basically is asking, how would you recommend start an architecture/student related YouTube channel? Start it for the right reasons to begin with. Definitely start doing YouTube because you enjoy it and you're not hunting for the fame, you're not hunting for the views and the likes, etc. That's a good starting point for sure. And then kind of look for a niche as such. So if there's something that you feel like you can provide that other people aren't providing, then that's great. That's going to put you into some kind of category, which is good, and obviously getting some unique viewers. Because people that study architecture, I know a lot of them are looking on YouTube for people to relate to and to look at work and ways of doing things. And if you find something on YouTube that isn't yet being showcased yet, definitely pursue that. Start exploring and showcasing maybe a different tutorial style or something like that. Because personally for me, I didn't really know what I was going into. I didn't want to be an architecture student on YouTube. It was mainly, I began doing fitness and those kinds of things, and then architecture kind of fell into my lap because I was studying it and it became more of my life, etc. And I kind of went down the route of being like this architecture student vlogger, and at the time there wasn't many students out there, architecture students, that were vlogging, so I kind of hit that niche early on. And that's why it's kind of snowballed on. But if you could find something that people are looking for, or something that's relevant at the moment that you can capitalize on, that would be great. Another couple pointers in terms of actually building up the brand: be authentic, be yourself. Don't try and act and be this crazy person that you're not. Make your brand fairly simple and easy to kind of see it and think, right, that's that brand, or that's this brand, if you've got like a strong logo or a brand identity and those kinds of things. But I could sit here forever talking about it. But basically, be authentic, find something that people aren't doing at the moment, be consistent, and have fun with it, of course. How are you finding studying in a new environment? I'm actually really enjoying it. People keep asking me, how are you finding studying in London? I've been really enjoying it. I find it very different to what I was doing before, for sure. I'm living on my own. I'm not living with people. Well, I'm living with strangers as such, but I'm not going into university and I'm not in halls and those kinds of things with students surrounding me. So I'm kind of living on my own. I'm a lot more independent, and I'm just literally right across the road from the university, so I can just nip in. And being in London, obviously there's a lot more you can do. I've got Regent's Park literally just round the corner, so I go to Regent's Park and I go for walks and stuff. And I'm so far really enjoying it. Obviously I'm only like 3 weeks in. I haven't really done a big submission yet, so I couldn't really say properly if I'm fully kind of enjoying the new environment, because I haven't really experienced it as much yet. But so far so good. I'm really enjoying it so far, and I definitely would highly recommend going to London and studying London, because it's just sick. Just being in London, studying London is just great. Advice for when you feel stuck in your studio project, in brackets overwhelming brief. Firstly, strip it down to the basics. Obviously it depends how far in you are in your project. If this is at the start and you're looking at a brief and you're very overwhelmed and you're stuck at where to go, break the brief down into very simple terms. Go through the brief, print the brief out, highlight keywords and key aspects, and start just making things very, very simple, because sometimes a brief can be overcomplicated and you just need to kind of make it processable. Processable? Is that a word? Yeah, it is a word. It didn't sound right when I said that. Just make it so you can consume the information and start to really understand what is required and what isn't required. And you can only do that by printing out and breaking it down, making it simple, etc. However, if you're further down the line in your project and you get stuck and you're leading up to a deadline or something and you really need to get going, I would just kind of step away from the project, look at how far you've come and look at the stages that you've taken, and maybe just consider at what point has it gone down a different route, or is it gone down a different way, and just maybe take a step back in your process and maybe revisit that and explore that idea, rather than kind of going to the next, making these kind of drastic decisions to go to the next point. You can also go backwards and check where you've come from and what decisions you made to get to where you are. So sometimes it's healthy just to take a step back, even take a step back from the work totally, and just look at it from an external point of view, and then just think, right, I can do this, maybe I should have gone this way, and then you can start going again and building up ideas, etc. And it's really important that if you've had previous ideas, don't get rid of them. Make sure you jot them down, make sure you got them there documented, so in case this ever happens, you can go back and look at the ideas and add it to your development and your process, etc. Best advice for second year architecture students, I guess continuing in on the first year comment that I said, basically just continue to explore, but start to narrow down your kind of skill set. So I think first year is definitely a year for getting to learn all these different skill sets, testing all these different softwares and ideas and modeling techniques and drawing techniques and different ways of representing. Second year is a continuation of exploring that, so continue to explore those types of drawings and those types of models, etc., and start to make it kind of more specific and make it a little bit more technical and go a little bit deeper into that way of representing work. And then third year, you kind of fully refine that and you make like your final project out of this kind of 3 years of building up these skills, etc. So second year, just kind of develop and build up on first year, and I think you'll notice second year is probably one of the most relaxed years, because first year you kind of go crazy, you're stressing, you're trying to get used to the course. Second year, you're kind of thinking, oh, this isn't too bad, I can maintain and kind of cope with this workload now, I've got in a good routine. And then third year, it's like, right, this all counts, this is going to go crazy and it's stress, etc. So just kind of relax in second year, enjoy it, build up on your skills, start to kind of narrow down your interests and what you want to explore, and you'll be fine, hopefully. License or no license, which one is better? I don't think I could say. Obviously it completely depends what you want to do and what route you want to go down, but I don't think there is a better one as such. I guess I'm not really in a position to say because I don't have a license, but yeah, scrap that answer, forget it. What alternative careers can an architect/student get into? This is a big one, I think, because architecture students, if you think when you're studying architecture, you're studying loads of different things. You're studying the history of architecture, you're studying kind of engineering, graphic designs and the way you represent your work, illustration because you go into animated stuff, You're going into lots and lots of different fields, photography, film. You can test all these different ideas in representing your work. And when you explore architecture, you are exploring all of these subjects too. So when you come out of architecture, or studying architecture, whether that's your undergrad or your postgrad, or even as a fully qualified architect, you've got an amazing amount of skill sets that is going to set you up for going down anything really. You could literally go down anything. I know people that have gone and got a degree in architecture and then ended up going into graphic design. I know people that have come out of architecture, come out of masters and gone into media. You can literally go into any profession really if you look really into it. Any really creative profession, or you could even go into like management, project management, construction, engineering. The list goes on and on. I'm not going to sit here and talk through an entire list, but the idea is that architecture gives you so many skills, and so you don't have to just be an architect. You could be anything because of all the skill sets that it gives you, and it kind of broadens your horizons and broadens your options, and that is the beauty of studying architecture. So I think going into architecture, you have to be aware that you don't have to be an architect. You really don't. You can go into any profession. And I think that's an important thing to remember. Which architecture softwares did you use from first year? Which BIM do you recommend? So in first year, I didn't use any software whatsoever because I wanted to be fully present with drawing, model making, sketching, and learning as much as possible. However, in the summer of first year, I worked in practice and I worked in Revit, AutoCAD, Lumion, and SketchUp. I then went into second year and I continued to work in Revit, so I used Revit for the entire year, which probably wasn't a great idea looking back on it. And then in third year, I did everything by hand for the first half of the year. Then the second half of the year, I did everything in Rhino. And then I went into practice on my year out and I used Revit the entire year. So the softwares that I've been using is Revit, AutoCAD, Rhino, Lumion, and SketchUp. So they're like the 5 softwares that I've used. How can I start a career? I have no experiences and I'm doing a master's. It's a tricky one because obviously I'm assuming you've kind of gone into your master's in pandemic world, so a lot of people that came out of their undergrads obviously came out into a pandemic and couldn't get a job, and universities offered to go into a master's, and the problem with that is that you have no experience in between, which is actually quite important to the development of your career. So if you're in that situation, definitely just start building up, I don't know, maybe connections on LinkedIn, start building up an online profile, an online presence, start connecting with people, meeting up with people, getting to know people. And I think that would be really important. So when you come out of your masters, you could already get yourself in a position by knowing people and connecting with people, and you could come out and get a job straight away because you know someone who has a job available, or you've got a friend who works in this practice, or you've got this person's an associate, etc. The list goes on. So I think probably the most important thing is firstly connecting with people, getting to know people, building up your kind of community of people on LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook or YouTube or anything. Just get into contact with people, and I think that's a very, very good start. But in terms of actually getting a job after, that could be an entire video in itself. So yeah, but definitely start connecting. Talk in Spanish. I literally don't know any Spanish apart from hola. Sorry, I'm really sorry. I literally don't know any Spanish. Advice for someone at GCSE level as an inspiring architect. I wouldn't stress too much at GCSE level. I think there's a lot of younger students out there that think, oh, I really want to be an architect, but what do I do at GCSE? But I think at GCSE level, you are still really, really young, and you need to learn as much as you can and really go down something that you enjoy. Don't start picking subjects at GCSE level because of your future self, your aspiring future self. Pick subjects at that age that you really enjoy and that you're passionate about. And I think that's really important. And try not to get too caught up in, well, this is going to get me there, this is going to get me there, because that's what I did. I went into my GCSE and I picked subjects that were going to tailor towards what I wanted to do, architecture. I chose graphic design, art, etc. But those are the subjects I was also interested in. So make sure you just choose a range of subjects that you are really interested in and you are going to enjoy, because in that way you're going to really knuckle down and work hard. Whereas if you start picking subjects that you're going to think, well, that would be better for this, that would be better for that, then you start getting all caught up and you get all complicated. But it just needs to be as simple as possible at that age. How do you cope with stress/anxiety? Big question, because I still don't think I cope, and I don't think it's easy to cope with things like anxiety, for sure, and it's not an easy fix, but I think there are definitely ways of getting around it, or getting ways of kind of distracting yourself. So one thing for me is definitely being in a routine and just keeping myself going and distracted and working and building on things and being creative and distracted in different ways. So when I say distracted, being distracted with studying or doing YouTube videos or doing Instagram posts or researching or those kinds of things. And that will really keep you kind of your brain ticking, rather than you just sitting there twiddling your thumbs and thinking about how you feel. And I think personally for me, my anxiety gets worse in the evenings, because usually that's when I'm sat down and I'm not really doing anything, and I'm sat there and I start thinking about things because I'm not distracted and I'm not busy. But when in the day I'm literally perfectly fine and I can cope. So definitely routine and being busy and keeping on top of work and those kinds of things. One thing that I notice really triggers my anxiety is when I'm not on top of things and I'm falling behind on work, and I start stressing and I start getting all like agitated and things. But if I keep on top of it and I keep in a routine, most of the time I feel my anxiety and my stress is kind of kept to a minimum, which is good. I've been sat here this whole time and I forgot I've got my little coffee there. Any advice for third year crits and portfolios? Yes and no. I did half of my third year in lockdown, which wasn't ideal, so it was probably very different to what you're doing currently. But I would say be experimental in a way, but also in a refined way, if that makes any sense whatsoever. Be experimental as in step outside your comfort zone, start doing some crazy drawings and crazy ideas. Don't be shy to go crazy and think of some mad conceptual idea, an abstract idea, and then start refining those ideas and those concepts for your presentation, and you can really produce some amazing stuff. Try not be refined to squares on a page. So when you've got your pin up, usually in first and second year, you just want to pack in as much information as possible, and you end up getting these kind of series of photos and this grid of photos. But in third year, try and break out of that, do some crazy things and have things going all over the place, and something that's going to really tell the story of your project. Start layering over information and make it interesting. Start really kind of wowing the viewers. And I think that's the kind of level you need to be at for third year, to start pushing your ideas and your work and your representation to that next level. But yeah, in terms of portfolios, also think of how you can represent a portfolio in a different format. So you've obviously got your A2 big massive portfolios, which you do in first and second year, but also think in third year, can you start doing a book? Could you do a video? Could you do a website? Could you do something digitally? Could something be in VR? There's all these different options that you can explore within third year, because you've got the opportunity to do that. How often do you go to the gym now? So I've been training maybe 3-4 times a week, if I can. If I can, that's a key thing, because there's been a lot going on, trying to adjust to a new city, get my bearings, get into a routine. But usually at the moment, I've been going 3 or 4 times. And that is a wrap on all the questions. So there were some great questions. My throat really hurts. I notice when I speak really quickly, my throat starts to get really sore. Excuse me. So thank you so much for watching today's video. If you're not following my Instagram, make sure you follow my Instagram. You can get involved in these Q&As and those kinds of things. So it's at Tom Roach Studios. Make sure you smash the thumbs up button. Make sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I'll see you next time. Peace.